Now it is my great pleasure to introduce our panelists.
General William S. Wallace. General Wallace assumed command of the 5 Corps on July 18, 2001. He commanded the Corps during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, before leaving to become the commanding general of the Army's Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. The general assumed command most recently of the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command at Fort Monroe, Virginia, in October of 2005. Please join me in welcoming General Wallace.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks also for the opportunity to join this distinguished panel today. At the outset of my remarks, I'd like to offer some comments about the Arab Spring itself, followed by comments on how those still unfolding events might impact Iran and U.S. policy, and then finally the issue of Camp Ashraf. Among those things to understand is the context of what has been called the Arab Spring. First, in no case has the change, either positive or negative, successful or not, promised by the events of earlier this year, run its full course. There are still lines being drawn, constitutions being written, and political parties being formed, strategies being developed, all of which will continue to influence outcomes for many months and most probably years. Second, it seems important not to use too broad a brush when analyzing the events of earlier this year. By that I mean that although some in the media and some political figures will look to similarities across events and then generalize as if those similarities form a regional or perhaps global pattern, it seems to me equally important to understand that each nation touched by the Arab Spring had unique circumstances which made change or the attempt at change possible, and those circumstances should not be overlooked nor overgeneralized. Now, having cautioned about overgeneralization, let me do exactly that. I'm certain that each of you looked at the events of the Arab Spring through a different lens and formed some notion of what, why, and how. I've done the same. The aspects of those events which seem to me to have the most universal impact are threefold. First, technology; second, response; and finally, political formation. First, technology. It goes without saying that the use of social media has become a potentially powerful political tool. From a call to assembly in Egypt to perhaps a rallying cry for Occupy Wall Street, the power of the Internet and such applications of Twitter and YouTube and Facebook have proven that free and open dialogue resides on the Internet in abundance, even where it might not reside in a society. Next, response and responders. As one looks at the events of the past year, there seems to be a relationship between responders and response, between change and status quo. In those locales where the established government, regardless of its complexion, could command the loyalty of responders, be they military, paramilitary, or police, or all three, then that government was likely to use those responders rapidly and decisively to put down whatever social unrest it might have faced. Finally, political formation. It's here where change seems to be slow, sometimes to the frustration of those who have brought about the change itself. From old government to interim government to new constitution to new elections, etc., what appears to be rapid transition from the old order to a new one tends to be painfully slow in progressing toward a final outcome. It is in the area of organization where I see potential danger. Let me elaborate. My thesis is simple. In places like the Middle East, political entities